Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny panel. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So it's a pleasure to open my first meeting as the chair of this panel and know how important the work of the panel is in developing and reporting on the care of the people of Inverclyde. So I'm really honoured to be taking up this role, and we'll now move to item 1, apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest.
We have apologies from Councillor Daisley. We were notified that Councillor Curley would be substituting, but I don't see Councillor Curley. Convener will now move to a roll call before asking for declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Curley. Councillor Jackson.
In the chamber.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present in the chamber.
Robert Mackenzie.
Present remotely.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber, and Councillor Curley's on screen now.
Councillor Curley.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor McCluskey.
Thanks. I just want to declare a connection in relation to item 8 by virtue of a family member being resident at one of the care homes mentioned, but I've applied the objective test and don't consider that I have to recuse myself from the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Cassidy.
I have a connection to declare to item 8 on the agenda by reason of a relative on the board of one of the organisations mentioned in the report. I've applied the objective test and don't consider I have an interest to declare because this is an update report promoting and not subject to any officer recommendations.
Thanks very much. Before we move on to the main business, I just could also say thanks, I think, on behalf of everyone in the panel to Alan Stevenson, who's here today. Most of you will know that Alan's shortly moving on to a secondment as Interim Director of Primary Care, and I'm sure that we all want to take this opportunity to wish him all the best and thank him for all the work that he's done that links to this panel and far, far beyond. But Alan's obviously with us for the whole of the meeting, so we'll be hearing more from him soon. And I'll just also clarify at the start of the meeting that item 3 is now a written report instead of a verbal one, and we'll also note that item 6 isn't being brought forward to this meeting of the panel. So that brings us to item 2. That's the Revenue and Capital Budget Report, Revenue Outturn Position as at 28th of February 2023. And I think it's Craig Given who's going to speak to this report. Thanks very much, Craig.
Okay, thank you very much through you, Convener. This is the Revenue and Capital Budget Report up to the period of 20th February 2023 for period 11 report. So as at period 11, we're showing a projected underspend of roughly about £2 million within the social care element of the budget. The main reason for this underspend is due to vacancies in all of the areas we've got within the social care budget and an overall underspend in the home care provision. This position has improved since period 9 by around £600,000, and this is mainly due to movement from the older person's budget and then the criminal justice budget. Home care has reduced mainly due to a decrease in the expected costs of sessional staff and overtime, and also further increase in vacancies has led to this shift as well. We also saw a reduction in client commitments of nearly £100,000 during this time period. Criminal justice has also saw a further reduction in costs of around £100,000, and this is due to a combination of vacancies and payments to other bodies. The capital position is also shown in the paper, and our main projects are the new LD facility and the Swift upgrade. And the majority of this spend is likely to incur in the next financial year. Finally, in the report is earmark reserves. We started the year with earmark reserves of £28.325 million, and we're projected to carry forward £17.639 into 23-24. Again, as I've said another time, overall, in my opinion, we're in a fairly healthy position financially, and happy to take any questions anybody may have.
Thanks very much, Craig. So I'll just open that up for questions and comments. I see that Councillor Armstrong has got one. Thanks very much, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Convener. First of all, can I just say on behalf of our group that we wish you the very best during your chairship. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a few points, questions really. The first one is, I suppose, is I don't know whether it's about the scheduling of this scrutiny panel, but it does seem that the reporting periods and the meetings of the scrutiny panel don't fit terribly well, because, you know, we're being advised as to a position at the end of February. We're actually in a new financial year now, and I mean, I know we can't, you know, it can't happen, you know, immediately, but it just feels that this, I suppose it just feels that this is particularly, you know, far away from the end, you know, from the end of February, and I just wonder if there's anything, you know, that can be done about that in the future. I mean, for example, I know there's a report later on that talks about the position in March, and March to April isn't as far as, you know, February to April. I don't know if there's an answer to that.
I totally appreciate the point that's been made here. Certainly, at this moment in time, we're presenting period 11. In terms of period 12, which is our year-end position, we don't have that at the moment. So that's probably certainly something we can take into consideration, and a lot of it is around the timetables which we're working with as well.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Sure.
I just wondered under 4.2, I just wondered whether there was any detail that could be shared on the delayed placements, non-identifying information. Is there anything that can be said about that? And also on the same point, the final paragraph says at the end of the year. Now that presumably is the end of the financial. Is that I think that's the end of the financial year. Yes. So is there any detail on the delayed placements that can be shared? Thank you.
Can I just clarify, Councillor Armstrong, is it 4.2 insurance services?
Yes.
Yes. In terms of the delayed placements and delayed, I'm not really sure what we mean by delayed ourselves. Kate, could you help us, you know, with that one?
I'm wondering if Marie could maybe help me a wee bit with this, some of the detail.
I don't have specific details about those particular placements, but I think the comment is around describing the movement since last projection. So what we're saying is we had assumed at the last projection that there would be placements in place, but that's now not happened. But I guess we could get a bit of detail around those particular placements for you offline if that helps.
Yes,
is that right, Councillor?
Yes,
Is that okay? Perhaps this was later, and I see Kate wants to come in.
So how we've described delayed means that the children are not progressing into our care, so I would say that was a positive.
Okay, thanks very much. On 5.0, can I ask what the draft means? I mean, is that a typo, or is the whole section draft?
Through yourself, Convener, it's just a typo. It's the final position. So my apologies for that.
Does that answer your queries, Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, just one, from me, just one more. I mean, obviously, 6.2, it is disappointing not to have spent more than half of the allocation, and I think, you know, I think we'll have to note that. I understand, you know, that the issues around recruitment and retention and so on, but I think it's disappointing when we get a significant allocation and we have been unable to spend it with people in the right. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if that was, you're coming back in, Craig, thanks.
I'm more than happy to just comment. Obviously, I think that's in relation to the COVID earmarked reserve that we have. I suppose it's just to give you the assurance that we've maximised all the criteria that we were asked on that particular basis, and there has been retention and that sort of things. So happy to clarify that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor McCluskey?
Yeah, it was just to follow up on that, actually, just to confirm that I've got this right then, Craig. So the 6.2 is the amount that the amount in 6.2 is the IJB COVID reserve that we've discussed at a number of meetings. Yeah, so that's the money that we obviously asked that the government didn't make us return, and the government have made us return it. And we obviously kind of gone round on that at both the IJB and here in terms of them allowing us greater flexibility, but they never allowed us the greater flexibility in how to spend it, so we've had to return it. Is that correct? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful, Councillor McCluskey. So, and thanks very much, Craig, for that report, and good to hear that you're sort of typifying it as a healthy position. So can I just ask that the panel notes the report and the recommendation to the IJB?
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to agenda item 3, the National Care Service, and Alan Stevenson, I think, is going to take us through this report. Thanks, Alan.
Convener, thank you. And through yourself, this is a short report on the National Care Service update. We have attached the correspondence that went to the Health and Sports Committee just to confirm that the Scottish Government are planning to extend stage 1 of the active listening consultation event, which will take us through till the end of the summer period. So this short report just details that in terms of their intention to continue to engage in listening events across the country to get some more feedback in relation to specifically around people with that lived experience. So the report is really just a very short summary to put that in writing. I think the Vice Convener was keen that it was a written report rather than just a verbal update today, and that process will clearly take its route through the summer period, and we would expect the scrutiny panel to be updated further whenever the Scottish Government conclude that piece of work. We've also attached the correspondence as Appendix 1, and I am happy to attempt to answer any questions. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks very much, Alan. Before I open up for questions and comments, just as you're saying, the letter refers to the series of planned regional forums, the listening events where people, we hope, can engage directly with ministers and officials. So can I just ask yourself or your successor, Kate, that we can make sure that we get some further information about when and where the forums will be held, and also that once we get this detail, that full encouragement is given to officers, elected members and trade union colleagues to attend these forums. Yeah, thanks very much. So I'll just open it up for questions and comments now. So I see Councillor Robertson and then Councillor McCluskey.
Thanks, Convener. This is a question really just about the letter in Appendix 1. I'm just wondering what the route was for the letter to get to us, because I'm just noting that it's not addressed to us. So I'm just wondering what the route of us seeing the letter is.
Sure, thanks very much. I don't know, Kate, are you wanting to take that? Thanks.
I think it came via around some of the narrative that was going on nationally, and I think I had a discussion with Councillor McCluskey, and he felt as a Vice Convener it would be helpful to bring it to the forum or to the scrutiny panel because it's the first thing that we've actually heard. The National Care Service has been silent for 6 months, and because of the change of leadership within the government, things are a wee bit up in the air. So we felt that it was probably timely to bring it here, and I see that Councillor McCluskey is indicating that he wants to.
Can I come back in? Is that all right? Just
Yeah, sure.
So that's helpful to know that we kind of did get the letter by circuitous means. And I'm just wondering if we're going to request, given that there is a new government, etc., direct routes of communication for updates such as this, that they don't stop at MSP level, that they do come down to local authority levels and have a mechanism for direct communication.
So there is various. The main direction that now seems to be through the Chief Social Work Officer. You would expect it to be the Chief Officer, but it isn't. It is actually because the responsibility and the National Care Service or social care sits with the Chief Social Work Officer, and we have the kind of delegated responsibility in terms of that from the local authority who I am social worker. So Jonathan will probably, like Alan, will be the one that will get the majority of updates. Setting that aside, that there is a series of communications that are now planned between the Cabinet Secretary and the Chair and the Vice Chair of the IGB. And I think Councillor Moran and Alan King will be attending that. And hopefully we'll get a sense, and I think Chief Officers are invited to that event, and get a sense of where we're going there. But as soon as we know, we will share it with elected members.
Okay, thanks very much, Kate. Councillor McCluskey.
A question just before I do that, just to clarify the letter, though it was publicly available on the Scottish Parliament website, and it was just drawn to my attention, which is why I drew it off. So potentially that your point still stands very much that there should be communication, but I don't know if there maybe was similar communication at COSLA. But I was told that letter was sent as part of the bill's scrutiny in Parliament. But it is, anyone can download it on the Scottish Parliament website. Just in terms of the question to Alan, Alan, I want to restrict this to a question that you might actually be able to answer as opposed to something that's the government's responsibility. And I'm just wondering, given the amount of uncertainty that there's been about this, how are we, first of all, how is staff morale in terms of those staff who might be in line for being moved to a national care service in the future? And how are we, with the limited information that we've got, communicating with our staff to kind of maintain good morale and good lines of communication while this is kind of all ongoing?
Convener, through yourself, thank you for that question. I think I've mentioned this before, that the staff feel this is something that's going to happen way in the distant future. And I think staff that I've spoken to as Chief Social Work Officer, while they acknowledge it's a good thing that an extension's been granted to do more listening events, I think people are genuinely not sure about the direction of travel and the kind of timescales in relation to this. So certainly in my discussions with staff, and we discuss this at team meetings, we're trying to keep staff up to date, but it's quite difficult because, as Kate has mentioned, there's lots of activity going on in relation to the subgroups across the orbits that we work in, but there's not a lot of information coming out which is really digestible at the moment. So I think it's just one of many concerns that our staff have got, but the communication's good in terms of the heads of service speaking to the staff, and whenever we've got something tangible, I am sure Jonathan will want to, with the heads of service, arrange some discussions with the staff moving forward. That would always been our intention. So just to summarise, I think staff feel they are concerned when there's additional timescales put into anything staff accept the rationale for doing that, but it also feels like it's moving a bit further away So I think we have got a job to do moving forward and keeping people up to date as best we can as the momentum builds during the summer on the listening events. And obviously we will be encouraging the staff to take part in any opportunities our staff have got to attend events. We will be encouraging our staff to do that.
Thank you.
Does that
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. I think that's great, Alan. I'm just thinking that's really good to hear that we're going to get, before I bring in Councillor Armstrong, we're going to get, we've got the communications right here in Inverclyde. It sounds like Alan's given us assurance there, and we're going to be proactive about these listening events. I'm just wondering, is there anything else? Do we maybe need to reach out as well and say that the communication routes we'd like to be sure that they're all working from Scottish Government down to our panel, that there's maybe something that we could be doing there, perhaps reaching out. So that would maybe reassure some of the panel members. So Councillor Armstrong will bring in.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think it's fair to note that speculation is rife as to whether the intention is to retrench to Feely or stick with everything, and it's an extremely confusing and muddled picture, really. I mean, one comment I would make is when we undoubtedly now have, I beg your pardon, a First Minister who has a good grasp of some of the consequences and issues around this. I mean, he himself said that if we're in January, that if we're going to pay our care staff £15 an hour, it will cost well over £1 billion. And without the money to raise income in the Scottish Parliament, no one has any idea where that money could possibly come from. So I think there are huge questions about who, how, the what for. I think is probably the only bit of clarity. But it is it's an extremely confusing situation. I don't really have a question unless anyone wants to comment about the retrenching to Feely aspect, or is that just more speculation? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Armstrong. I'm not seeing lights coming on in here, so I don't know if Alan Stevenson wants to say any more about that, or
Convener, through yourself, I think Councillor Armstrong is absolutely right. Any further discussion, speculation, I don't really think it would be helpful for the members. Well, certainly we will share the information as it comes out, and we'll keep everybody up to date. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Thank you. So I think all that remains for us to do is to just note the correspondence received from the Minister. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, I didn't notice your late there, sorry.
I think it's wrong to say what Ms Armstrong said there, that nobody has any idea where the money from to pay an extra, to pay £15 in there to care workers. Through the STUC and different organisations in Scotland, it's been identified that there's taxpayers in Parliament there that the Scottish Government have never used. There's been money wasted, billions and billions of pounds. You can shake your head if you want, but there's been billions of pounds of money wasted. Just this morning we hear the cost of the ferries, the cost of the ferries, we don't know how much that's going to be. So as much as we relied on these care workers, we were clapping them and supporting them throughout the pandemic, to say that there's nobody knows where we can get money to pay them for is completely wrong. We look at the amount of money so far it's been wasted on administration just to administer the National Care Service. So it's just a point to say our care staff deserve £15 an hour, so they do. We all, I think, we can all agree on that. It is wrong to say the money isn't out there, the money is there. If the will was there, the money would be there.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jackson. Okay, so I think all that remains for us as the panel just now is to note the correspondence received. Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to item 4, and that's the report on the inspection of Cross Hill. And I think Jonathan's going to take us through that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Convener. The report from your papers refers to the inspection with the Care Inspectorate, pardon me, in December of last year of Cross Hill Children's House. And the inspection evaluated under 2 indicators: how well we support children and young people's well-being, and also how children and young people are loved and get the most out of life. Panel members will see that the service achieved a grade of good against both of these indicators. Inspectors within the report recognised the quality of loving and trusting relationships that young people have with staff within a family home environment, but also that they knew their rights and they understood how to access independent advocacy services. They were also noted to be very engaged and involved in their care plans, which were seen as comprehensive and child-centred. Inspectors also recognised the focus on mental and physical health, and also the importance of young people's connections with their family and friends as going above and beyond. Particular comment was made about how all young people were in full-time education or employment, and everyone over the age of 16 in education also had part-time jobs. So some really positive messages there in terms of future employment. Inspectors identified one area for improvement which related to older young people with particularly complex and challenging needs, and aligned to this, reference was made to a short time last year, which was particularly challenging for staff and our young people due to quite a specific set of circumstances. In response to that, an improved matching pathway has been developed across our children's services, and that really helps to inform practitioners in decisions about the most appropriate children's house for a young person to go to on a planned basis. A number of other improvements have been implemented since the inspection took place, and that includes a dedicated child's planning and improvement officer assigned to each of our 3 children's houses. And we've also created additional posts working across a 7-day pattern to enhance the support for young people as they move towards greater independence in the community. I've been up to Cross Hill a couple of times since coming into post, and I think certainly since this report was published, young people there were concerned about the impact of some of the language within the Care Inspectorate report. And following our last meeting of this scrutiny panel, I had a discussion with Care Inspectorate colleagues about that point. However, young people in Cross Hill have spoken since then about the choice of language in one part of the report and how upsetting that's been for them. So, given the significance of that issue, we will be picking this matter up again more fully with the Care Inspectorate, and the views of our young people will absolutely be central to that feedback. Young people also felt that the impact was compounded by some local press coverage of the inspection report itself. So they took a decision that they wanted to write to the editor of the local paper, and I'm pleased to say that a response came back for the young people this morning very quickly, and we're extremely grateful for that and welcome that. It gives us the opportunity to develop something positive about young people and their experience of care, to really help that awareness in our local communities about what it is to be a care experienced young person. And we will look at how best to take this offer forward after today. So in finishing my own comments, I'm pleased that the young people and colleagues at Cross Hill had an inspection that was rated as good. They continue to be absolutely committed to building on the areas for improvement as part of our ongoing improvement journey with and for our young people. But I'm certainly happy to take any questions or clarifying things.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. And myself personally, I was really pleased to see that the inspection highlighted the love and affection in the sense that this being a family home, that's exactly what we want to see in a young people's care home. And I also just want to say a huge thanks to the children and young people for the responses that they've made. They're really showing that there's nothing for us without us. And I think it's really sort of fortunate enough to have had sight of the letter, and they make such significant and important points that all of us, I think, could learn from. They shouldn't need to be said, but unfortunately they do. And just mention the sort of scrutiny that they themselves are under, that other young people wouldn't be under, and the public eye being drawn to them through certain coverage. It says so much about the young people involved, and I'd really like that to be conveyed back to them. Just really great to see them doing that. So I'm just going to open this up for questions and comments now. So I think I see Councillor Jackson first, And then Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Convener. Again, just to be honest, report's a great report, and it's a series of a lot of the work the officers and young people. I've just got two, not concerns, but just two questions. The first one is about the amount of kind of seasonal staff we use within our care facilities. We're careful sort of aligning with formats, we're making a mistake here, within these facilities. A lot of these young people, the consistency of the public health and the payments, just to see people who comment on that. The other thing is on staff training, especially around young people who are trans. If our staff had any specific training, there's a lot of pressures coming young people who are transitioning. Do your staff have any specialist training, or are we going to have any specialist training? So thanks.
Councillor Jackson, if you don't mind, I'll take the question around the sessional staff, because to be fair, Jonathan's on the meeting, so I'm giving him a chance. Certainly the sessional staff has been an issue that we came across more recently, and I think, you know, like all inspections, sometimes it draws the attention to what we need to look at. And we're in the process that Archie Howard, who is on the call here today, has done a significant bit of work to try and consolidate that. So we are moving to a different way about how we provide additional support into residential homes to ensure that continuity, and that we will move away from sitting staff into ensuring that we have care staff that are available that know the children at that time. Now, I think that, like every bit of social care and social work, we have had been at the vestiges of the impact of the pandemic and people leaving and moving on to other jobs. But it has given us an opportunity to regroup to ensure that we protect the relationships, particularly because that's the positive in this report, that we're protective of the relationships. And to have the relationships, it means that there's a consistency. So I'm glad that you pointed that out to us, and we're certainly working to do that, and so that there will be more opportunities, and our staffing will increase, and will become less reliant on sessional workers to support that, and that work's ongoing as we speak at this moment in time. In terms of, I can't answer the question around the specifics about, I'll go back and find that out for you if we've had specific training, but certainly our staff are very knowledgeable about the management of it, but if they've had specific training, I'd need to come back to you on that.
If that's something, if you discuss offline, can you have advice to us?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to discuss offline. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks very much. I had a few questions, but actually, Jonathan, in your introduction, you've actually answered them all, including the particular one about it's a pity that the media locally picked up on the one, you know, on the one more difficult issue, as opposed to all the very positive things. But you've answered them all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Robertson.
Thanks, Camilla. I'm taking the opportunity to kind of follow up on the questioning that we had last time we met as a panel, where we said we had some very specific things we wanted to go back to the Care Inspectorate about, and we knew this report was coming down the line, but just a later time. So I'm taking the opportunity of this being here to see how that conversation went, and we fed back our collective chat to the Care Inspectorate.
Thank you, Convener. The conversation with the Care Inspectorate was collegiate and recognised the feedback from this panel. I suppose that with any inspection, the conversation may not always be with the inspector who led that particular inspection, but I think the shift since then, Councillor Robertson, has been the strength of feeling from our young people in Crosshill and how they very ably articulated their concerns really specifically. So I do think that gives us an opportunity on their behalf to take those views directly back to the Care Inspectorate to augment that initial conversation with a bit more heft. And I think that will be a much more powerful way, given that it's not just feedback from this panel, but it's also feedback from the young people directly.
Is that
just, yeah, it would just be really good to get feedback on that the next time we meet.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councillor Quinn online and then Councillor Brooks. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I've just not really got a question, just a comment. It's just to kind of echo some of the stuff that's already said. So first of all, well done to the young people. Really great that they've challenged that, local paper. Because if they don't see themselves reflected in those articles, then it's absolutely great that they've took matters in their own hands and made sure their voice has been heard. So well done to them. And I just want to congratulate the staff as well on a good report. I think I mentioned before, if inspectors came to inspect any of our homes at any point as people have got children, I'm sure we probably wouldn't pass on every single item. They would probably find areas for improvement in every home. So this one isn't any different, but I just want to pass on my thanks to all the staff, the great job that they do, and as a corporate parent, we're so grateful that we've got such staff that are caring and looking after our children so well. So it's really just to pass on my thanks. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Quinn. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're gonna just welcome the report and to see what's sort of been previously said. I have a question that's all about procedure. I'm not trying to read into this question, but about procedure. So the inspector has spoke to 4 out of the 7 young people in the home. That obviously is less than 50%. Is that normal? Would that be unusual? It's a procedural question. 4 out of 7 seems low.
Thank you, through you, convener. It's the nature of an unannounced inspection is such that it may happen over the period of 1 day, or it may be across 2 days normally. And with our children, as was noted in the inspection report, being in education primarily, we're not always available, but children may also choose not to take part. The offer is always there, and then when parents should make themselves available across the school day and beyond to try and engage with as many children and young people as possible. So I suppose there will be on all inspections a variety of responses from our young people, and some may, as I say, choose to participate and others may not wish to do so.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. So I think if we could just note the outcome of the inspection then.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got agenda item 5, that's the HSCP Strategic Plan 23-24. I think it's over to Craig for this report in the first instance. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, convener. This is the strategic plan. This report presents the final HSCP transition plan progress update for this particular cycle, the refreshed HSCP strategic plan and the associated outcomes framework 2024. This was approved by the HSE in March earlier on in the year. As mentioned in the paper, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted on the delaying of the original plan, and the 2-year transition plan has now been in place up until the end of March 2023. The progress on the remaining plan will be reported upon on a 6-monthly basis. Work on a new strategic plan will commence shortly. As part of the refresh, management reviewed the original actions there, updated the strategic needs assessment, reviewed the impact of COVID-19, discussed the strategic plan, discussed with the strategic planning group, consulted with third sector and community representatives, health board and the council. An outcomes framework was developed to show how the plan contributes to national outcomes and how we monitor progress against each of the big actions we've got. The plan will be reviewed in line within the time scale and developments that take place for the National Care Service as well. It's just an introduction and highlights of the report. Happy to take any questions or Kate wants to follow on from that.
Just to add that much of the work had been done in the strategic plan, and the strategic plan, unlike other strategic plans, is a 5-year plan, and that really coming out of COVID, it was agreed that we wanted to do a refresh, because you can appreciate that some of the progress that's actually been made will have been impacted by COVID and the world that we were in before. isn't always relevant to the world that we're actually facing now. So that was taken into consideration. I suppose the thing that was missing about the previous plan was the outcomes framework, and I think that was the bit that we wanted to harness to understand how we were actually doing and to measure it against our big actions. And I think that was something that both the Health Board and the Scrutiny Panel have picked up at the stage about the lack of outcome focus. So we're particularly pleased about the outcomes framework. It's not perfect by any means, but it is a start of refinement and measurement about how we intend to meet these challenging priorities or our big actions. So it's just to add to this. Obviously, it has been approved by the IGB too because of the sequence of activities. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kate and Craig. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for talking us through that. And as you say, it's already been approved by the IGB, but it's really important for us to have this opportunity to look at it as well. So I see you've got Councillor Robertson coming in first. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimia, to repeat herself and re-say the things she said at the IGB unit was like previously. Oh, dear grief, I apologise to the world. I always am so grateful for the time that people put into plans. That used to be what I did for a living, and I remember it well, and don't miss it very much. But it's an awful lot of work going into these things, and it is good to see the outcomes framework there because I think it was a gap, and I'm glad that everybody kind of agreed with me. It doesn't happen very often, but everybody agreed that it was a bit of a gap. I still think it could be more outcomey. I definitely do, and I think I did say that at the IGB that it could be more outcomey. And I'm just wondering, given that we are where we are and that we have it, what the journey towards further outcominess is going to be. I am all about, I'm ahead of the curve at every turn. New word, outcoming.
Thanks very much. Councillor Robertson, I'll pass it over to Kate to talk about outcominess.
Thank you. I quite like that one. That's a new one. I think that because we have that strategic planning group, I would see the evolution of the outcominess being part of the strategic planning group. It is very outputting, okay, and less about, but I think that the fact that we've aligned it to some outcomes, that helps. It helps with some measure and measurement. I'm not sure that all the measurements would give you the outcome that you would look for, and maybe less is more here, but I think it's a starting for 10, and I'm really keen to have this debate as we move forward. But considering that we had to do that in a very short timeline, and we hadn't anything, I think that it's a good start.
Okay, thanks very much. It looks like Councillor Robertson.
I just want to come back in
Sure,
on that, if that's
sure.
okay. It is a good start. It is a really good start, and I suppose the kind of shout out I would make is there's qualitative things. There's things that you can count, but there's also opinions that you can gather, and actually, I'm going to almost put a pin on this and go, the number of referrals to distress brief interventions programme, number of referrals is going to tell you a number. It's going to tell you something, but what was the impact of it? And we find that out by talking to the people who've benefited from the intervention, and I think that's definitely a shout out that I would make.
If I don't mind coming back in, I think you're absolutely right, but again it's about the evolution. So in the brief intervention, my head is shouting out to me to say, so from the brief interventions, how many required a referral into your community mental health teams? Okay, because that would really show you the impact. And I think that we need to develop our own systems to get to where we want to. And our current system, believe me, doesn't give us that level of data. So we have to kind of up every morning. So that is our intention. That is our intention as we move. And it's not about referrals, because these are only inputs. It's about the output and then the outcome. And I think that's the work that needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Reynolds.
Thanks, Convener. This isn't
a criticism, it's not meant to be, so I hope you don't take it as such. And the report's really clear and easy to read as well. But page 75 got a pie chart that is impossible to look at and decipher unless it's in colour. Would something like that being a bar graph, you could keep it as grey. You don't even need to have different greys with a bar graph. And it would be easier to see. I'm particularly interested in 2 or 3 of those items, and I have no idea what information it's given me. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Reynolds. I'm never sure if that's the sort of thing that if you look at it on the online papers, we might get it in colour there, but I know I've had that challenge myself. Councillor McCluskey.
Thanks, convener. Like Elizabeth, I've been over this already at the IJB, and I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm actually just going to ask a kind of question about process and moving forward on this. So 2 questions come into my mind. One is how the role of this panel in kind of scrutinising the social work and social care elements of this plan. So I suppose the first question is, how do you envisage us having a role between, and it's a pretty short period before the end of this plan, over the next 11 months. How do you envisage the reporting coming back to allow us to kind of scrutinise it? Because obviously, I understand why this happens. We're obviously getting this after the IJB has approved it, which is fine. But actually, we did see the earlier draft at the end of last year, so there's plenty of opportunity to feed in. But then thinking ahead to the next strategic plan, a sort of similar question of how, given that the next meeting of this panel probably would be till August, how do we envisage maybe the panel feeding into the start of the development of the next strategic plan, especially in those social care and social work elements that we've got our remit in?
I think that's a very good question. I think I'll be honest with you, when we did the refresh, we thought that the National Care Service was running to the corner, and we thought that this would just be an extension going to the National Care Service, because the plan wouldn't have any relevance if it was the National Care Service. I'm really mindful that we could spend a lot of time or put a lot of effort into a plan when we've got significant capacity issues. But we'll go off like this. The one's not straightforward, is even when we started this work. So I probably started it with Angina in about October last year, and we've got it to where it's got to. And bearing in mind that there was still a lot of work to do to get it to the outcome framework. But it may well not be the outcome that we think that's going to happen, so it might be a brand new plan. And if we are going to be doing that, we would be consulting with social work and social care Scrutiny board as to what's important to add to them. That's really important.
Thanks very much, Kate. Councillor Brooks.
Thanks very much, Hugo. If you'll indulge me, at our last full council meeting, we talked about disposable vapes and challenge of the environmental impact. And we obviously quite clearly said that there was of a health impact. So Big Action in Roadmap 5 of the plan talks about smoking cessation. And you have to say
Easy
way to say.
It's okay, Councillor Brooks. Everybody says that when you
I
come
say it wrong, So I just wondered, is there a place within this scrutiny panel for officers to help us understand the value of reducing smoking with disposable vapes? Is this a future report, or could be included in a future place within a report to ensure that we can understand from the health point of view that vapes, as much as maybe I don't like them, but maybe have a place in helping people to stop smoking. So where would it fit into the council? And I'm suggesting that this may be a good place.
I think it's quite a difficult one, because this is a social work and social care scrutiny panel. So much of the work around is sitting within health improvement, primary care, Councillor Brooks, and that's kind of the health side. It may well, I'd like to take that off and think about where it sits in the broader council, because the council has got every right as part of the community planning partnership. I don't want to start bringing matters that relate to health here, because it detracts from what goes on about social work and social care, and it's a huge important agenda by now. But I'm willing to, I will go back and think, because I think it's a good point, and I think it would be helpful, whether it sits in the Alliance group. I think people might have an opportunity to sit and think about that and we can provide you that information, certainly, in the health side of the world. It's where it would be directed, probably the alliance groups, but let me think about that, I'll come back to you.
That's good.
Okay, thanks very much for raising that, Councillor Brooks, and it looks like it's something definitely to think about, but possibly not for this panel, but definitely one to remember for the future. Okay, so I think, oh, sorry, Councillor Reynolds, sorry, apologies.
Just to reply to that, I mean, there is a motion coming forward to the next opening, so on the public health issues around vaping, and also just to note that the committee, the Education and Communities Committee, did ask for it to be included in the alcohol and drugs and substance abuse projects that are going on in schools, to include vaping in that as well.
Thanks.
Okay, so that if it is dealt with there, we could take that. Certainly, the EDP has put funding into education to undertake that kind of prevention work with young people around addictions, and we could, and certainly if they're widening that, that's positive. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. So I think if we just note the contents of the report. Thank you. So there's no item 6 today, so we jump unusually from item 5 to item 7, which is the community payback orders, and we've got the Inverclyde Annual Report 2021 and 22, and then the summary of local authority annual reports 2021 and 2022. So I think I'm handing over to Ian Hanley and Audrey Howard to talk us through this report.
Right, thanks, convener.
Thanks.
So this report is tabled for noting. The context for this committee report is that every year Justice Social Work is required to submit to both the Scottish Government and Community Justice Scotland an annual report on the delivery of community payback orders in their local authority area. The Inverclyde 2021-22 CPO annual report was submitted in October 22. And you'll find that in Appendix 1 of your papers. However, we are not able to report on this until the national summary report of all the CPO annual reports across Scotland is laid before the Scottish Parliament. This happened on the 31st of March this year. The summary report is prepared by Community Justice Scotland, and you'll find it in Appendix 2. We wanted to cite you on this activity for a couple of specific reasons. Firstly, Inverclyde is referenced in the National Summary Report regarding its practice in recognising and removing barriers associated with poverty and deprivation that can impede an individual's ability to complete the court order and access wider support. You'll find that on page 27 of the summary report or page 140 of your committee papers. Secondly, Community Justice Scotland is leading on a series of localised media and press releases highlighting the benefits that community payback orders have in local communities. For Inverclyde, the media and press release will highlight the work carried out by the service at the Victoria Bowling Green during February and March 2022. And this features also both service user and service recipient comments on the impact of that work. And you can find the details of that specific project on pages 5, 8, 9 of your Inverclyde CPO annual report, or 106, 9 and 10 of your committee papers. I'm here with Gail Hughes, who's the interim service manager for Justice, and Ian Hanley's here as well, and we're happy to take any questions about the report.
Thanks so much, Audrey. Like you highlighted there, it's brilliant to see the Inverclyde examples in the national report and just showcasing the staff's deep understanding of the local context and the lively response to that context. Mention things like the pantry memberships and the transport arrangements. It was really excellent to see that. So I'm just going to open up. So I see I've got Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, convener. I think you've really said what I was going to say. I just think it's a fantastic example from Inverclyde in terms of the insight and the imagination. It's markedly different in tone and from other practice examples. I think it's fabulous. So thanks to all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Jackson.
In a similar kind of way, Karina, over 76% of CPOs come from at most 5 areas. It's nice to see that we're taking a prevention approach and recognising the information for those from mental health problems that are linked to crime becoming involved in criminal justice. It's just to say, it's nice to see the prevention approach as well. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Councillor McCluskey.
Thanks, Convener. Just a couple of short questions. Just considering the kind of pressure that the broader criminal justice sector is under at the moment, has there been additional pressure on CPOs, especially as the backlog from COVID through the court system starts to clear? Are you starting to see more pressure in terms of more unpaid work orders? And then secondly, has also given the pressures, has the profile of offenders changed at all over that time? Are you seeing different types of offenders coming through the system? Thanks.
Okay, regarding the backlog through the courts, court activity is picking up, and although our 22-23 data is still to be finalised, what we are seeing is a return to disposal levels that were equivalent to pre-pandemic. So our kind of 2019-20 figures, we're now seeing them. That looks like what we're going to report for 22-23. So I think there was a bit of a concern early doors that there might be a bit of a tsunami of orders because of the backlog. All we're seeing at the moment is a return to the levels that existed before the pandemic. In terms of the sort of I suppose the profile of individuals coming through on CPOs, unpaid work, I'm looking at my colleague here, Gail, who's, and we're not seeing that any different characteristics of individuals coming through.
No, I think it's very similar to how it was pre-pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So can we note the submission? Oh, sorry, apologies, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Convener. I think that there is something really powerful in the message that this and other mechanisms like it is sending out, that there are alternatives to incarceration, that we know that it doesn't always work, it's seldom a good experience for people, but that there are things that can be done as an alternative, and the power of that to people who are involved in the criminal justice system to know that they have a different level of value placed on them, that it's not just we're going to send you away, that there's something else that we can do is really, really powerful. Bearing in mind that, and this could absolutely show my ignorance here, this question absolutely could, I'm fully aware of this. Community payback orders being one mechanism within the new national strategy for community justice. Have we had a sort of update on what that is going to look like in its entirety to this panel? And if not, if we have, I'm ignorant and I'm sorry. I've forgotten that we did, but if we don't, could we get one?
So you're looking for a community justice strategy for Inverclyde's element of that?
Well,
just before I pass it
just
over to
there's a new national strategy,
sure,
that's basically trying to do lots of diversionary things, and this is part of it, but it's not the entirety of it. I'm just wondering if it would be useful for us all to have a sort of clearer picture of what that national strategy, how it plays out.
Okay, thanks. Audrey?
Yeah, I'm going to let Ian Hanley answer that, who's our Community Justice Lead Officer, who's been taking the Community Justice Partnership, the Inverclyde Community Justice Partnership on that journey of commenting on the draft and then sort of looking at the actual national strategy per se. So I'll let you answer it, Ian.
Thank you, Convener, for yourself. Councillor Robertson, thank you for that question. So absolutely right. In June of last year, Scottish Government produced a new National Community Justice Strategy for Scotland. In terms of Inverclyde's local outcomes improvement plan for community justice, a decision was made to extend that by one further year until 2023. There have been some delays from the Scottish Government insofar as the publication of the performance framework. That was published on the 31st of March. So what I can say to the panel today is that preparatory work has been undertaken now for well over a year. We are intending to publish a community justice outcomes improvement plan under Clyde that not only focuses on the national aims, but actually also focuses on 4 local aims, and it builds on some of the comments made by members this afternoon around about deputy inequalities, housing and homelessness. So we will be looking to report back not only to this committee later on this year as well, but also the community planning partnership as part of our statutory requirements to engage with partners.
Thanks very much, Ian. Okay, so we'll note the submission of the annual report and the publication of the summary of local authority annual report.
Great.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks very much. Right.